Hello and welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to show you Natasha, a 2015 drama romance story. So let's get started. The story begins with a young boy named Mark. Mark and his friends were having a good time here. After the party, Mark goes to a room to have a physical with a girl. But because this girl refuses to be physically intimate with Mark, he quietly leaves. After arriving, Mark goes to his house. Mark falls asleep the next day after watching Mia Khalifa videos on his laptop. Mark's mother picks it up and tells him that his uncle is coming to meet him today, so get up early and prepare. Following that, we see Mark's uncle, who arrives at Mark's house with his wife, Gina. Gina is originally from Russia. They were having dinner together when Mark's gaze was drawn to Gina's bra, prompting Mark to begin looking at Gina's bra after dinner. Gina is going to Russia today, according to Mark's mother, because she has a 14-year-old daughter from a previous marriage, and she will also visit Russia. We see Mark's family a few days later. They had come to pick up Gina at the airport. Gina arrives with her daughter Natasha. Mark meets Natasha for the first time here. A few days later, Mark's uncle marries Gina for the second time. Everyone gathers at Mark's house to celebrate their marriage. After the party, Mark was only looking at Natasha. Natasha is brought to Mark's room. Natasha wonders what you do in your room the majority of the time. Mark informs Natasha that I study and play video games in my room. Natasha wonders if you've ever brought a girl into your room and gotten physical with her. Mark relaxes after hearing Natasha's story and informs her that you are only 14 years old. And how can you discuss being physically active at such a young age? Don't you feel embarrassed about all of this? Natasha says that, no, I do not feel embarrassed by all these things because I've been physically active with more than 100 people. And if you want, you can get physical with me as well. Mark claims that your mother married my uncle, as a result of which you are. Natasha, my cousin's sister, says she doesn't care because I don't care. My mother is a very cheap woman, as I've seen her get physical with others. Mark frequently falls silent and does not say anything. One day, Mark's mother approaches him and tells him that Natasha is visiting this city for the first time, so she doesn't know much about it, and he doesn't even have any friends here. That's why, until Natasha makes a friend here, you stay with her because she appears to be your cousin's sister. The next day, Mark goes to Natasha's house, where Natasha's mother tells Mark about Natasha and says, Natasha is still a little girl, so don't be angry if she says something wrong to you. Natasha's mother requests that she open the door. Natasha pushes open the door. Her mother then tells her to get ready and go out with Mark. Natasha, enraged at her mother, exits the room. Mark also pursues Natasha. Mark inquires of Natasha as to why she was upset with her mother. Natasha then expresses her displeasure with her mother. Rather, she despises her. Mark speaks with Natasha here before taking it to one of his friends' houses, Rufus. Natasha enjoys meeting Rufus. Natasha inquires about Rufus. Mark informs Natasha that Rufus is living alone because his parents left for another city a few days ago. Following that, Mark and Natasha dine at a restaurant. Natasha is left at Mark's house. Natasha tells Mark not to come to her house tomorrow because I will come to your house the next day while Mark is studying at his house. Natasha then arrives at his house to meet him, and they both sit and talk before going for a bicycle ride. On the way, Mark runs into some of his friends. And he gives them drugs because Natasha learns that Mark has drugs and asks for them when she gets home. Natasha is also given drugs by Mark. They both sit in the room and do drugs. Natasha requests Mark's laptop. Mark then grants her permission to use his laptop. When Natasha opens the laptop, she notices that adult videos are playing. Actually, Mark was keeping an eye on this adult. But he didn't remember to turn it off. Natasha likes to watch these videos. Natasha opens her Facebook profile on her laptop and begins showing Mark her personal photos. Mark's weapon stands out in the photos. Natasha asks if you want to get physical with me before Mark says anything. Natasha begins to remove her clothes, causing Mark to become physical in his room with Natasha. After they get physical, they begin to like each other and spend more and more time together. They both exercise several times per day. Mark is gradually becoming attracted to Na. Mark's uncle and Natasha's mother go on a trip one day, so Natasha has to stay at Mark's house. Mark and Natasha talk in the room together. Natasha says she enjoys being with Mark and wishes she could stay here indefinitely. Yes, Mark says, so why not? You are welcome to stay as long as you want. Natasha informs Mark that her mother is still visiting another man, implying that her mother is cheating on Mark's uncle. Natasha claims to have told her uncle everything. But they didn't believe a word she said. Next, we see Mark's uncle and Natasha's mother, who have just returned from their trip. Natasha's mother invites her to accompany her home, but Natasha refuses because she enjoys being here. Natasha's mom says to this that I know why you don't want to leave here, and I know all the things you have done with Mark. Natasha begins fighting with her mother after hearing this, but Mark's father captures Natasha. Natasha was furious with her. Natasha has to return home with her mother because Mark's mother and father exhort her a lot. The next day, Mark goes to Natasha's house, where Natasha's mother tells Mark that it is not your fault, but Natasha is a spoiled girl with a dirty habit. She has gotten physical with many old and young people, claiming that Natasha's mother closes the door and asks Mark to leave. This evening, Mark will depart from here. Natasha arrives at Mark's house with her entire belongings. Natasha informs Mark that she is returning to her hometown. So, do you agree with me after hearing this? Mark remains silent after Natasha informs him that her mother has divorced her uncle. I was getting physical with your uncle, and while I was getting physical, your mom saw me, and I wanted to so that there would be a fight between my mom and your uncle so that my mom wouldn't smack your uncle, Mark explains. Mark says nothing further. Natasha is drawn into the room as a result. Natasha is leaving tomorrow. Mark is disappointed because he fell in love with Natasha that morning. Mark gives Natasha some money so that she will have no trouble leaving after this. Natasha walks away quietly, carrying her belongings. There was discussion in Mark's house about his uncle's divorce and why Gina divorced Mark's uncle. Mark knew everything, but he didn't tell anyone. After a few days, Mark's friend Rufus calls, but he does not answer. When Rufus calls, Mark comes to his house. Mark notices Natasha, who has moved in with Rufus. Rufus informs Mark that he called several times to inform him about Natasha, but you never answered. Natasha is looking at Mark. Mark glares angrily at Natasha. Mark realizes here that a love affair is meaningless. Rather, it is all accomplished. Mark also rides his bike. In rage, he departs from here. Natasha simply stares at it. When Mark returns home, he thinks of Natasha, and the story ends there. Thank you for watching, gentlemen.